Good morning. I thank the leaders of this Stanford Seed program for inviting me to speak. It was quite difficult finding the time, but they're very persuasive, and I don't know what much more I have to say because Carl has sort of given part of my presentation already. But distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'm happy to be here. I don't know how I qualify to be an expert to speak on AI because I'm a lawyer. And most people ask me, how come a lawyer is doing technology? I always tell them that I studied law for 6 years and I studied technology for 34. So forgive me. Now, down to the topic of using AI as a catalyst for trade and transformation in Africa. AI, I like to think, is the beginning of the fifth industrial revolution, not the fourth, right? And in a minute, I'll let you know why. AI allows us to scale operation by fusing human intelligence with artificial intelligence. And the data that we used to analyze of old using analytics is now automatically analyzed by machines. And machines don't sleep, right? So whilst you're sleeping, the machines are working. And they're much more accurate. And because the machines are working when we're sleeping, it means we're on the verge of a new revolution that we haven't seen before. That is a mutating fourth industrial revolution into the fifth. So why do I say that? Every time in history something changes in terms of how we produce product solutions and services, that little change, if not observed, leads to consequences that if we don't take advantage of, we get left behind. So in the first industrial revolution, there was a change in the agrarian economy to an economy where we discovered coal and energy and factories started running. So you see that the people that used to wield the power, the kings and nobles, who used world power because they controlled the land and they controlled armies which protected peasants and so on. And because peasants couldn't live on their own, they needed kings to protect them, so the kings became powerful. And that's how the power evolved. But with the evolution of the energy, you saw that there was a rising class of bourgeoisie or merchants, people who got their power from producing things in factories. That shifted the whole world. And from 1879, when the French Empire fell, the whole of Europe was swept and we had a new economy. And that economy was also further enhanced by the change in the introduction of mechanical and electromechanical machines, which also produced another mutation. Then we got electricity, produced another mutation. And by the third industrial revolution, we had information computer technology, which started in the 80s. And people like IBM were the most powerful companies, Big Blue. And then the internet was introduced. Once the internet was introduced and we could talk across computers and computers could speak to each other, another revolution started. That started the fourth industrial revolution because the internet introduced certain features. And as the features came together, they gave people the power to transform the world by creating a brand new infrastructure and economy that had nothing to do with the previous revolutions that had gone on. And so the features of this revolution was also, you had automation, you had 3D printing, you had augmented reality, you had Google, which was trying to compile all the information in the world. And things like music, how it was distributed, content, it impacted the print industry. You can see Kobe type. Yesterday, Mfantsipom won a famous victory. And so let's see how many Mfantsipom boys are here. As Augustus, right? Or Augustus, I mean, they was a pain of Mfantsipom. Of course, I was very delighted and excited. I can see the Reverend Ankama, someone nodding vigorously. And so I posted a message on the Transform handle. And within 2 hours, I had 15,000 views. In the old days, you'd have seen it in the graphic. It has to be distributed the long day. And even graphic distribution might not even get that much. And people will have to spread it by word of mouth. We're talking 1 hour. People from Australia, from USA, and so on. That's the power of the internet. And that's how it impacts the print industry. That's how it impacts the information industry. That's how it impacts the news corporations that control the minds of people and tell them what to think. So, why do I say that with AI, we're on the cusp of a new revolution? And how is Africa going to benefit? And how are we going to leapfrog this and make sure that this time we participate? So AI simply means that computers have large language models that they can work on by allowing machines, instead of human beings, to take the basic principles and to improve on them by themselves. And doing that, they don't do that the natural way. The computers found the easiest way to talk amongst themselves, having learned a language, where language can be a natural language or it can be a language of images, whatever it is that we teach the computers to think. So computers doing interior design, for instance, you can give them a room and they can optimize the room because they've learned millions of combinations of design. So what's my wife, who's an interior designer, going to do? You know, I take my house, I say I have a 200 square meter flat. I want to optimize it. My emphasis on my bathroom, my living room, and automation. I put it into an AI design platform. Now this AI design platform is learning images of several 200 square meters data that is trained on, right? For literally hundreds of millions of combinations. So whereas if I tell Carl, okay, let's put the bed here, let's put the bath here, let's run the wires here, the computer already knows how the wiring is going to run, what's optimized, how to prevent fire, how to increase the bathroom and reduce it, you know, where to put the audio, where you get the best sound sitting. And it gives you everything in a second. And you get the blueprint, and then you send it to your contractor. And he comes and he does everything else. So where's the interior designer like my wife going to be? You can't compete against a computer because it never sleeps. You know, you just have to understand that for every single body of knowledge in the world, if the data is available and if the language model has been built, the computers keep improving on it. You know, so when you come to trade in Africa, if we miss the first industrial revolution, then we have to understand what to build, the fundamentals of this what I call the fifth industrial revolution. Because AI, after the fourth industrial revolution, the internet of things, all this data gathering analytics has moved to another level, where the large language models and the capacity of machine learning and the advent of quantum computers that now can work at the rates that's unimaginable, makes the old economy that we live in now redundant, whether we know it or not. It's completely redundant. I mean, wars, financial market management, trade, everything is now on steroids. And what are the fundamentals that are going to help Africa to keep up? The advantage is that the language models that are built, the algorithms, the machine learning, it starts first from human beings, right? And then it goes to computers. Now, today, AI is a tool, and even generative AI, you know, it gives very false information for those of you who need it. It's not perfect, you know. I was writing an article because I had to go and meet the Asante Hene, also on mobile business, right? And so I asked, was this ChatGPT? I asked some of my people to find out what, you know, something about that Asante Hene that connects to fan sperm and all that. AI was like 80% correct. But it took me to read to understand that the AI is only as good as the data that you're feeding it. Because they told me that Santini went to France, which I knew to be false. So, there's a human aspect of how we interrogate the AI and how we use it to meet our purposes. But for every single field of endeavor of expertise, you need human expertise to know how to prompt the AI to give you the right information. So I say that the best knowledge that Africa needs now is prompt engineering. And I'm not so sure that prompt engineering is even the language of scientists. I think it's the language of actually arts students, historians, philosophers, psychologists, because they can ask those questions to get the answers that are useful for solving problems, rather than scientists. When I was a young guy, I wanted to go into programming, because I love computers. But after a while, I realized that the answer is not programming, but rather what to tell the programmers to write to solve problems. We're at the same place. What does Africa need in order to use these tools and even autonomous generative AI to solve the big problems of today? What are the fundamentals? And Carl mentioned some of them. We need to have access to the internet. So we need to concentrate on having infrastructure that allows us to have high-speed internet. Now, there's something called infrastructureless scaling, where infrastructure is scaling. I can scale on somebody else's infrastructure. So when you're talking to ChatGPT, it's not your infrastructure, but you have an internet connection to it. So you can ask ChatGPT to give you information that might be useful to you to solve your problems. But does Africa just need that, where the data centers that have the most powerful quantum computers belong to other people? The danger is that if Africa relies on the big digital platforms to find out answers to the questions that we need to leapfrog, what is going to happen? Imagine 1 billion people feeding ChatGPT information that is learning. Very soon, ChatGPT is God, right? It will learn everything in the world. And we are the ones training it for free. So if they give it to you for free, it's not actually for free. We have to know which parts of our solutions we should offer to the big digital platform that we are training. The whole world is training, but who owns it, right? And we have to know which part of our intellectual property should be on AI-enabled laptops and AI-enabled on-prem data centers of our own, where we train AI to protect our intellectual property. Because if we give our intellectual property to all the big platforms, then we'll have none, right? And we have to have specific AI for specific solutions, for specific visions for Africa, so that we have a competitive advantage in scaling trade. Our advantage is that we have the youngest demographics. So if you're talking about brain power, we have the most, potential brain power. We have the most in the world, right? And that potential brain power is where your Stanford Seed program and so on helps put, AI for all, getting people who have the potential, which means they have an empty drive, which is fillable, right? To mentors who will help them fill that drive with the right information, so that our hard drives, if you take the youngest population continents on the world, is bigger than anybody's hard drive, right? We have to fill those heads with the right content and train people to understand technology and to think in a modern way, so that they can enhance their capability to create these language models themselves and train these language models with data and figure out how we can solve our problems. Because the world as you see it is already dead. Every single business that offers a solution or service in the old way today is dead, whether they know it or not. It's just a question of time. Carl raised ERP, a big ERP, you had to pay $1 million for enterprise planning. Fine. I always tell my accountants that, in 2 years, I don't need any accountants. I don't even need an ERP. Think of my company having an AI data center, which is on-prem, and me feeding all the 34 years of data about my company into my own language model. and data. And then teaching AI by borrowing principles of accounting from different AI platforms, and now training the AI to understand the information that's useful for the business. And imagine that I have a voice interface to this AI. What do I need an accountant for? When I come into the office, I said, Magic AI, tell me what are 10 biggest financial risks. That's all I need. It has the data. It tells you you're going to run out of cash in 10 days. You need to fire 50 people. Your bank interest is too high. You have to shift to this bank instead of that bank. And if you invest in MTN today, it's the most profitable thing to do than run your business. No accountant can tell me that, but the AI can, right? So trade and empowering Africa to leapfrog is based on a vision that needs critical thinking. That goes through AI as a tool and positions us to solve the problems, not just of today, but of tomorrow. It takes visionaries to be able to see how that's going to work. And visionaries are not limited to Europe or America. In fact, some of the most idiotic people I've seen actually live outside Africa. But in Africa, we have a dynamic environment that allows us to think about things a different way. So we talk about internet connectivity, we talk about data centers for the data that we need to do on-prem. We talk about how we have access to platforms, but we should know how to use it. And we talk about security. Once we start talking about AI and digitization, we now talk about security. Because once you build a digital infrastructure, as soon as you put it up, everybody's on trying to hack it. And if you have no security, you have no trade, you have no business. Africa has to think about security, especially in the advent of quantum computing. Because whatever cryptographic system you use can be broken by quantum computers. So while we're thinking about AI, we have to think about quantum-proof AI. That means that AI that can be protected with multiple factor authentication to avoid the very leapfrogging that we wanted to do to be destroyed. When there was a marine cut cable, many enterprises suffered because they weren't able to think through, and this is not an AI thing, it's a risk management thing. It's to do a risk register where you look at all the possibilities and mitigate it. And as soon as we think about leapfrogging, we also have to think about security, because if we don't, everything can be wiped out. Marine get cut. Nobody thought that 3 cables can be cut at the same time. All of a sudden, people don't have internet. And everything is on the internet. And your AI is on the internet. And my robot that would tell me my 10 risk is also cut. So then, how do you operate, right? So as we do that, we have to think about security. Now, with internet, with local on-prem, with security, we now have to harness data. And that's come to my own business, electronic and digital identity. In order to get into the digital world, you need your digital avatar to go into that world, right? And when you go into that world and interact, we have to know that you're who you claim you are. And that's the core of the Magic's business. We create digital identity with security so that as you sign smart contracts, as you interact with AI, we know for sure that you are the one doing that copy and not somebody else pretending to be copy. You can only commit a crime when you wear a mask, whether physically or digitally. So in this AI environment, when we go and we interact with the system, we need to be able to protect our identity. And we need to be able to get our rights and privileges and discharge our duties and obligations digitally. Because AI lives in a digital world, right? So whether it's a corporate or it's national or it's whatever, digital identity is very, very important, because that gives you the access control that you need, whether at the national level or the local level, to be able to leverage digital resources. If you trade between here and Kenya, and you don't know whether the person trading with you on the other hand is a fraud, how are you going to leapfrog trade? Digital identity is very important because it underlies commercial digital transactions, government interactions, and most importantly, payments. And security and digital ID enables us to function by leveraging AI to the next level. So when we create this ecosystem, the metadata that we get from trade, right, from financial interactions, from logistics, from whatever, we create all this data. And this data is what AI feeds on. The truer the data, the more secure the data, the more we can leapfrog. And this is our responsibility, not the responsibility of somebody else. So whilst we can leverage without building our own infrastructure, we have to know the infrastructure that we need in order to protect our identity, our intellectual property, and to fulfill our vision. But when trade is now metadata with security and identity, and it's an ecosystem where we can do this quickly, we're building data that allows us to do everything else. What does your customer want? You know from the data, right? If Kobe buys a Rolls Royce and then, Kobe, I hope you buy one, and a Bentley and a Ferrari and a Bugatti. When he starts buying, his profile is already being done. CRM, we know what it is. We know what choices he's making. It's machines learning this. They know what to offer Kobe next. We even know what sort of leather seats he needs. If there are 1,000 Kobe's and it's feeding into the car industry automatically, and it's going to a manufacturing field automatically, AI already figuring out how many cars we can build over the next 60 years, because there are millions of Kobe's, everybody buying cars. We don't need somebody to pouring over a graph or driving to Kobe and showing the latest. We already know Kobe and we know what he wants. This accounts for every single product, solution, or service. And without the tools to let machines, it feels, to let machines work on true data, then we'll be at a disadvantage, right? If you ask AI, and Mr. Couture here is in logistics, what is the easiest way to move 1,000 tons of maize from Kinshasa to Accra? It can tell you better than somebody who's been on the route 1,000,000 times. It can tell you how to do it, how much petrol you're going to use, what track is the best track to use, what are going to be the risks, than anybody who's been in the industry for 50 years. So let us see this dawn of this new, what I call the fifth revolution, fifth industrial revolution, after the fourth industrial revolution, as an opportunity, but we also look at it as a threat. But certainly, if we understand our vision, and we understand where we want to go, we understand the threats, and we know the opportunities. And if we carefully craft our strategy by understanding how the environment works, we can leapfrog, because in this fifth revolution, industrial revolution, everybody's on the same plane. The old factors of land, capital, and labor no longer count that much. It's vision, it's determination, it's understanding, it's prioritization, and it's learning how we go from A to B, no matter where we are. That will create an environment that will let African leapfrog. I sincerely believe that there's never been a better time for Africa than in this fifth industrial revolution, which relies on vision and brain power. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mr. Baiden.